I want to start with the fact that Romania shares one of the longest borders in terms of a NATO country with Ukraine. You've seen an influx of refugees over the past few weeks, as many have. What are you expecting in the next few weeks, just as this conflict continues on?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Indeed, Romania has the longest border with Ukraine among the NATO allies. And this border is more than 400 miles in terms of land border. And indeed, we had by now more than 500,000 Ukrainian refugees entering Romania. More than 80,000 stay in Romania as we speak. And this created indeed a great burden on the Romanian authorities. But with the help of the civil society, NGOs, and regular Romanians, we managed very well to cope with this crisis. We tried to create the best conditions for them to enter Romania. And for that, we have waived visa requirements. We have waived COVID-related quarantine measures. For those who are staying, we have created conditions for them to be accommodated, to receive food, free health care, for the students to be enrolled in the Romanian education system. And we have created even hotlines in Ukrainian language for the refugees in order to be able to understand the conditions for entry and for stay in Romania. As far as the situation in Ukraine is concerned, unfortunately, the conflict continues. And the military aggression is more and more powerful against Ukraine. Unfortunately, more and more civilians are victims of this aggression. And this runs counter to the international law norms, especially the international humanitarian law, which forbids the attack against civilians and civilian objectives.
Right.
And also, unfortunately, the rounds of negotiations which have taken place by now between the Ukrainian and the Russian diplomats failed to bring concrete results. And of course, this is understandable since the conflict continues. It is very difficult to reach a solution while the conflict continues and the fights are going on.
And Minister Aurescu, I want to ask specifically too about the refugee situation again, because you mentioned a lot of the things that Romania is doing, but a neighboring country, Poland, has asked the EU for more assistance considering how many refugees are flowing into other countries. Are you planning to ask for more assistance, and what would that look like?
We already have assistance from the European Union. We have Frontex officials who are working side by side with our police officers. And we will be receiving funds from the European Union in order to cope with the burden of taking care of the refugees. For the time being, we were able to deal with this situation in quite good conditions. But the prospect is that a larger number of refugees will be coming. And this is due to the possible spread of the offensive in the territory of Ukraine. And even if the fights will stop while the country is destroyed, the supply chains are, well, basically inexistent. So it is expected that a larger number of refugees will come. I've only mentioned the number of Ukrainian citizens who fled into Romania, but there are also third country citizens who entered Romania. More than 30,000 of them were helped by the Romanian authorities to come into Romania and then to leave the country towards their countries of origin. More than 20 missions, diplomatic missions, who were in Kiev, were also helped by us, and their personnel was evacuated in safety through Romania. We have also created here in Romania a hub in the northern part of the country, close to the border with Ukraine, a hub which is collecting international assistance, donations from various countries, and we are transferring them in good conditions in Ukraine. And a lot of countries already used this facility. We are planning to open 2 more such humanitarian logistics centers in order to help the distribution of international humanitarian assistance to Ukraine.
And Minister,
we have also tried to help in as much as possible the Republic of Moldova, because our neighbor is also facing a very large number of refugees. And we have created green corridors, green lanes from the Republic of Moldova Ukrainian border to the Romanian Republic of Moldova border. in order to take directly those refugees who are entering the Republic of Moldova and bringing them directly into the Romanian territory, and thus
Minister
helping
Aurescu,
our neighbor to deal better with this crisis.
Minister Aurescu, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure we get everything in. You mentioned Moldova, and a few weeks ago, you had actually noted that you wanted to see more NATO troop presence in Romania. Are you concerned at all that Moldova could potentially be on Putin's next target, considering it is not a member of NATO at this point in time and it's an independent state? Are you concerned that the offensive could continue to spread into this country?
2 days ago, the president of Romania, Mr. Klaus Iohannis, together with our prime minister, Mr. Ciucă, and myself, visited the Republic of Moldova, and we have discussed with the president, with the prime minister, with the foreign minister of our neighbor country. And for the time being, there is no such danger of, extending the conflict towards other countries in the region, the conflict in Ukraine to be, spread around. As far as Romania is concerned, as a NATO country,
what gives you that confidence, Minister Aurescu? Because many people are concerned.
Well, this is the assessment of our Moldovan colleagues. So I think they are the best to make this assessment, taking into account all information they have. Of course, the security situation in the region is very much deteriorated. But as far as we speak now, there is no such danger of spreading the conflict to other countries in the region. As a NATO country, you have asked me about what we would like in terms of reinforcement of the NATO presence here. And indeed, Romania, as a country placed in the southern part of the eastern flank of NATO, would like to see more NATO troops on our territory because indeed the security situation in the region changed radically. And the posture of deterrence and defense of NATO on the eastern flank needs to be reinforced. We have asked for a consistent consolidation of this posture, and there are steps which are taken by NATO in that regard. We have asked for a speedy creation of a battle group of NATO on the territory of Romania. Next week, we will participate in the NATO summit in Brussels, and we will discuss about these issues. This is one of the elements, the topics on the agenda of the summit.
Certainly.
And we hope to see resolute decisions of the alliance in that respect.
Certainly. And we know the U.S. President Biden will also be traveling there for that particular summit. When you mention NATO, I mean, over the past few weeks, we've seen a number of incidents involving drones. We're going to be speaking to a drone expert in a few minutes. And drones have entered into NATO territory in Romania, also in Croatia. How does NATO plan to respond if this spillover does happen, whether intentional or unintentional? What is the response? Because then that would be provoking Article 5.
Well, according to the information that we have by now, these incidents were what they are. So incidents, and there was no intention to send these drones in the territory of NATO countries. But indeed, it takes more coordination at the level of the alliance in order to cope with such situations. As far as the drone which entered the Romanian space towards Croatia, it only crossed the Romanian territory for less than 3 minutes. So for us, it was very difficult to intercept that drone. And the other incident was indeed just an accident, according to our information available right now. But indeed, we need more coordination at NATO level, also as far as this kind of incidents are concerned.
What would you say is top of the agenda in terms of more coordination with NATO countries?
Well, we have to discuss what are the protocols, the procedures for identifying such drones. I think it's a matter for the military to discuss. And of course, this is already being discussed within NATO following those incidents. But what is important now on the agenda of NATO, and especially on the agenda of the next NATO summit in Brussels, is that we discuss about the assessment of the current situation in Ukraine, the prospects for ending the war, and also what kind of assistance we can further provide to Ukraine, and of course to discuss about measures to consolidate consistently the eastern flank as far as the posture of deterrence and defense on this part of the alliance.